UP Tacloban waiting to go on. UP Tacloban, our moderator there is Professor Irma Tan. Please come in.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Ms. Coronel, you expressed in your speech that we are at the cusp of monumental changes in the media landscape where practically everyone, with the aid of technology, can be capable of witnessing, and this to a certain extent can be overwhelming and can be abused. What then do you think are the necessary values and skills that the university should impart so that its graduates may live up to the demands of the times and at the same time be leading participants in social reformation and in building democracy?
Yes, thank you for that question. It is true that the internet provides us, as you said, with such a deluge of information. And I think the thing that we should be teaching students is to be able to sort through that information critically, to assess the relative merits of various sources of information, to find information that is relevant and true. The other one is to be able to verify and corroborate information, not just to accept information uncritically.
And the third is also to be, it's the thing with, it's the same values that we should have taught them, or I'm sure we have taught them when they're reading newspapers or television. Television can lie, newspapers can lie, and blogs and online video can lie as well. So there should be, I think, the critical thinking skills that we learn in universities, the skill to sort out the important from the merely interesting is another critical skill which you need, especially in an age where there is so much information all around. And the third is also, I think, is because we're teaching them not just to be consumers of news information, but also producers of news and information. So the values that the journalism school here has been teaching, the values of verification, fact-checking, multiple sourcing, getting things straight, getting various sides of an issue, those same values should be taught not just to journalism students, but to other students, because other students will be out there publishing, broadcasting on the web.
Okay, thank you. Now we have UP Cebu. Professor Jesus Cinco is our moderator in UP Cebu. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. The current environment is characterized by general apathy and a high level of noise in both print and electronic media. Given this environment, it has become difficult for journalists to perform their role of acting as catalysts of change. While a multidisciplinary approach has been suggested by Professor Coronel to tackle this problem strategically, what measures or approaches are currently in place or intended to be implemented in the short term to allow journalists to remain effective in playing out this role?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, and it's a question that the news business all around the world is grappling with. I quoted earlier from the study done by the Associated Press. It was a study done by anthropologists who sat down with young news consumers over several months and observed their news consumption behaviors, which is what anthropologists do. It's what zoologists do with animals, but anthropologists do it with people. And what they found, I think, it's a study that should be done in the Philippine context as well. What they found was that young people were consuming the news. They were reading news headlines, they were reading news stories, but they found news content shallow and repetitive. It was the same headline news, minute after minute, hour by hour. And that tired them, it exhausted them. They actually wanted deeper and richer content, which the news media was not providing. They wanted content that had context, that gave them a history, a background, that gave them a sense, that helped them get a much more profound understanding of what was going on in public life. Yet all they got, for the most part, was the inverted pyramid and a one-line headline. They wanted more. So I think the question that journalists should be facing is, what kind of rich and nuanced and in-depth content should we produce, and what is the manner of delivery? For example, they found in the AP study that because news was so tiresome, young people were actually tuning in to Jon Stewart to get a different take on the news. So humor as a way of getting people interested in public affairs is a good peg, and that's one way. The other way is using new media, and using graphics and providing databases that readers, that internet users can use. So, for example, they would like to find out, a story on crime would be accompanied by a database that says, which neighborhoods have the highest rates of crime, what crime happened in their neighborhoods, what is the most, is it bag snatching, cell phone snatching, akit bahay, that's the most common in their neighborhoods. So this is what we mean when we say they want news they can use. They want news that is useful to them. So even as we give them a broad array of, rising criminality, they also want to know what's happening in their neighborhoods, what streets they should avoid, how effective the police is there, and what the police is doing. So that, I think, is a way to engage people. The idea is to engage people for a longer period of time in the news, because now the level of engagement, as the study found out, is shallow. It's very shallow. You read the headline, you read the first part, you read the lead, and that's it. But you want them to engage. And the only way you can engage them is providing them more interesting and deeper and more layered content. So I think it's a combination of using new techniques, video, audio, but also providing rich data, providing history like timelines as to the development of news, of current stories, providing them links to other background stories, and using the information that's already there. A lot of the things that journalists need to do is just to repurpose the content they already have in their news archives, for example, provide background and history to current events.
I think the older people are also watching Jon Stewart. Now we have the UP Open University. Our moderator there is Professor Alejo Espinosa. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to read a question sent in over the web by one of our alumni, Zandro Padas. The question reads, in your opinion, how participatory can local news agenda setting be? Is the local media ready and willing to pass the ball or teach journalism to ordinary people in the grassroots, so that any existing or would-be community newspaper might truly be by the people and for the people?
Okay, let me repeat that because it came in a little choppy. The question from UPOU is this: in your opinion, how participatory can the local news agenda setting be? Is the local media ready and willing to teach journalism to ordinary people in the grassroots, so that any existing or would-be community newspaper would truly be by the people and for the people?
I think it is in local or community journalism where the potential for more engaged citizen journalism can take place, because the issues are very local and people are deeply interested in what's happening in their own neighborhoods. It's much more difficult to get them interested in what's happening in Manila, but if it concerns, say, the water supply or criminality or flooding in their neighborhood, they will be more concerned. I think the community media has not, in this country, has not really kept pace with the technological developments and have not really used the interactivity that's already there. For example, mobile phones, websites, to be able to engage the readers more and to know from the readers what their concerns are. I think community media has been very, very good when there are natural disasters, for example, and they help out and they provide information. But to do that on a sustained basis when there is no news, as we define it, breaking out, but for issues that are more long-term, I think that's very important. But I think there's a great potential for interactivity, especially with community radio. With community papers, that's going to be much more difficult. But I think a lot of community radio programs are already doing these things. I think the question is they engage the citizens more as sources of news rather than as content producers themselves. they engage them as like, this as a victim or as a protagonist, rather than someone also who can do the news themselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. UP Manila is ready. Our moderator there is Professor Cora Añonuevo. Come in, Manila.
Greetings from UP Manila. We have Professor Bernard Carganilla, who is the chair of the Department of Social Sciences, College of Arts and Sciences, and is columnist of the newspaper Malaya, who will ask the question.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Good afternoon.
Agreed that there is a participatory revolution rolling across the world right now, but has the time come to sound the death knell for the campus press as alternative press? Students would rather read each other's blogs. But where is the passion for a free press? Would the absolute monarchy in Brunei, for example, allow a member of the Manila Collegian to embed himself in Bandar Seri Begawan and report on student life in that kingdom? Thank you.
The campus press as alternative press, I think it's a very live issue. You see, we've relied so long on the national press to tell us what is going on in this country, but therefore a lot of issues and concerns are really not reported. I think what is needed is to supplement reporting on national affairs with reporting on communities and on campuses. And I think campus newspapers can report on their communities as well as what's happening in the university. I think the campus newspapers can be the forum for dialogue within the university as a community, bringing various sectors together. I don't know how many, I saw that the Collegian was online, but it's still PDF versions of old issues. I didn't see much interactivity in the Philippine Collegian website. So this is fairly easy to do. It does not require a great amount of money. It just requires a few people doing the right programming and software. But I think the campus press could still be, in a sense, alternative newspaper for young people, and we have a lot of young people, and many campus newspapers actually have bigger circulation than some of the so-called national papers that we have, because, I don't know, what's the circulation of the Collegian? It's like 30, 40,000. That's bigger
Anybody
than a lot
from the Collegian here?
The smaller newspapers. Anyway, what I'm saying is, yes, the campus press has a role to play, especially in getting young people engaged in community life, but that they also, it's ironic that campus newspapers being serving an audience that is so attuned to the web have not really adjusted to the internet age as they should be.
I think the Collegian prints 15,000 copies every week.
Yes. I assure you that's bigger than the circulation of some Manila newspapers, and that's a huge audience with a great potential for engagement and interactivity.
Okay. I've been requested to remind everybody to please turn off your cell phones. We are having some technical problems with transmission. Thank you. Now we have UP Baguio ready. Our moderator in Baguio is Professor Victoria Costina. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. How can we help journalism and communication students who are technologically savvy and yet have become less literate, increasingly unable to both read books especially and write as well as they should, especially in English, the medium that they're expected to use besides their own regional languages? Apologies to my student audience.
I don't know if it's any consolation, but that's a global problem. The decline in reading and writing skills is palpable throughout the world, and of course there are many reasons for that. And some people blame internet and television for people used to read books more and used to write letters more instead of texting, and they used to write full sentences. They used to be able to spell, and those skills are not the valued skills in the internet era. I